All right, let's get right into it. Today we're unpacking the core wisdom from a really powerful manuscript by Eliezer Zola called Before I Go. And look, this isn't your typical polished self-help advice. This feels more like the raw, essential truth a father gives to someone he loves, the stuff you really need to know to navigate life's biggest questions. Zola opens the entire thing with this one sentence. And this isn't meant to be morbid or anything, it's meant to be urgent. It's a wake-up call, right? A reminder that none of us know how much time we actually have, so we really can't afford to live a life that we didn't consciously choose for ourselves. This line really sets the tone for everything that comes next. So where does a journey like this even start? For Zola, it kicked off with a huge loss. The moment that basically forced him to stop everything and look inward was when he lost his brother Jude. This really gets to the heart of what Zola's talking about. So often we see ourselves reflected in the people we're closest to. They're like a mirror. But what happens when that mirror shatters? Who are you then? Zola says that in the quiet that followed his brother's death, he was forced to ask himself a question that would change his entire life. And this is the question that changes everything. It's the starting point for the whole manuscript. But as Zola puts it, self-discovery isn't about finding some final perfect answer. It's really the brave and kind of messy, ongoing act of just following wherever the answer to this one question takes you.
Okay, so if you're going to answer, who am I? You first have to get a handle on what shaped the I you are right now. And Zola argues that, for most of us, our identities are built by these invisible forces that we don't even notice.
I think this definition of identity from Zola is so important. It's not a performance, it's not the curated version of yourself you post online, it's your core. And he specifically warns us about the modern trap of comparing our messy, ordinary, real lives to someone else's perfectly edited highlight reel.
So Zola points to these four big external forces that are quietly building our sense of self. Things like the praise or criticism we get from other people, constantly measuring ourselves against them. The roles we have to play, student, parent, employee, and the groups we belong to. All of this shapes us, a lot of the time without us even realizing it.
And this quote just nails the mindset we need to have. It's not about reaching some finished version of yourself. No, the real work, the whole point of it all, is the lifelong process of meeting the new versions of you that show up over time through new experiences and new challenges. So once you see the forces that have shaped you, what's next? Well, this is where you shift from being passively shaped to actively building yourself. But Zola makes a really crucial distinction in how we go about doing that.
And this is such a critical difference he points out. When you try to change out of shame, it's this punishing, never-ending cycle. You fix one flaw and that feeling of I'm not enough just jumps onto the next thing. The goalpost always moves. But change that comes from choice, that's driven by self-investment. It's not about fixing something broken, it's about investing in something you believe is worthwhile.
To help with this, Zola gives us what he calls the sculptor's mindset. Think about it. A sculptor doesn't get mad at a block of stone for its rough edges. They just see what needs to be chipped away and refined. You do the same with yourself. You're a work in progress. You find the habit that's causing the issue, not just the flaw. You adjust it calmly, no need for a big emotional drama, and then you just repeat. It's a craft, not a battle against yourself.
Now, the good news is you don't have to do all this sculpting alone in the dark. Zola introduces this really beautiful idea for mentorship, which he sees as basically the fastest way to speed up your own growth. He calls them light bearers. I just love this term. It's not about finding some all-knowing guru on a mountaintop. It's about finding someone who's just a few steps ahead of you on the path you're on, and they're holding up a lantern to show you where the potholes are and where the good footing is.
And the value you get from this is just huge. A light bearer basically compresses time for you. Just think of all the mistakes you won't have to make because they've already made them. They give you specific, real-world advice and help you build a confidence that's actually grounded in something real because they see you and they believe in what you can become.
Okay, so all of this leads to the final and maybe the biggest challenge in Zola's manuscript. After you've started to know yourself and build yourself, you have to learn to run your own race without constantly looking over your shoulder at what everyone else is doing.
To make this point, Zola shares this really powerful story from his own life. He grew up in Kinshasa, where the social rule was clear. A man greets a woman with a formal, respectful handshake. That was it. For him, that was just how the world worked. And then he travels to Durban in South Africa. And for the very first time in his life, a woman greets him with a warm, casual hug. He realized pretty quickly it wasn't romantic or anything. It was just community. It was a completely different way of connecting with people.
And he says in that moment, his whole being shook, not because it was wrong, but because his world just collided with a completely different one, and he realized that his rules were not the only rules. That single, uncomfortable moment was this huge lesson in perspective.
So what's the takeaway from that story? Well, it all comes down to this question. That danger of comparing, of assuming your track is the only one, it almost trapped Zola. He talks about how he held his family together after his brother died, a role he could only fill because he wasn't trying to be his brother. He had to run his own race.
And this right here is such a critical insight. Envy, Zola says, is the wrong fuel for your engine. It just makes you chase someone else's finish line. You will completely exhaust yourself just to arrive at a destination that was never, ever meant for you in the first place.
So what's the alternative to envy? It's accepting this simple, powerful truth: not everyone is going to like you, and that is perfectly okay. You're not money or ice cream. You weren't made to be universally liked. You were made to be specifically, authentically, and totally irreplaceably you.
And this really boils it all down to the core takeaway: a strong sense of self, your identity. That's your anchor. It keeps you grounded in who you are. But adaptability? That's your sail. It's what lets you navigate a crazy, changing world. If you don't have the anchor, you're lost at sea. But if you don't have the sail, you'll never even leave the harbor. You absolutely need both.
Which, of course, brings us right back to where we started. The whole point isn't to answer this question once and then put it on a shelf. The point is to live inside the question, to let it guide you, to keep meeting yourself again and again as you change and grow. And that, as Zola tells us, that is the work.